Good morning, ladies. Well, I'm in the middle of doing something and I just looked up and saw that it's 10 o'clock. So, good morning. Welcome to Lady Bosses. And this is going to be our last Facebook Live of the year. So, let's go out with a bang and, we'll look forward to some fun topics next year. And as always, if you have things you would like to talk about, shoot me a message, put it somewhere in the comment field or shoot me a private message, because if there are things you want to talk about, then let's do that, because this is all for you, ladies. So good morning, Lori. Oh my gosh, good to see you. So listen, let's get started. We're just, we're probably a minute in, so we'll get started. If anybody misses it, they can go back and look at the beginning. And remember, if you have any topics that you think you have a friend or someone who would benefit from, oh, thank you, Lori. Thanks. Hey, Colleen. If you have, make comments full screen. Let me see. Do I want that? I don't know. Anyway, messages pop up, and I don't usually have squirrel complex, but I don't know if it's anything important. Anyway, remember that we are having all these videos uploaded to my YouTube channel, which is just Donna Manley. So if there's anything you want to share with anybody, but they don't want to be part of the group, because believe me, people are so inundated with Facebook groups that they just don't want to join another group. So if you see something somebody'd like, you can snag it from there, send them a link, whatever. Good morning, Rachie. Thank you. Yes, on top of everything else, it's my birthday. And on top of everything else, and my mom's calling me during the thing, probably wish me happy birthday. On top of everything else, if you're on Facebook with me, you probably saw that I killed my laptop yesterday. I was really frustrated. I'll tell you what, I have patience for a lot of things, but when technology goes wrong, my patience goes out the window. And what happened is, I was really mad. Something wasn't working. Nothing was working. And I smacked it really hard and I killed it. Like, I can't even believe I killed my laptop. So yeah, happy birthday to me. Anyway, let's get started. We are talking about holiday survival. And I'll tell you what, it's always difficult this time of year. We always have a million things going on, and it can be very overwhelming, and it can just take the joy out of the whole holiday season, right? And isn't this year like 100 times worse? Because now, for most people, the holidays don't look anything like what they used to. So this year's really extra stressful. So let's talk about it again and talk about it in light of everything we're going through right now. So we're going to talk about 3 areas that will affect your entire being. We're going to talk about it from a mental standpoint, a physical standpoint, and a financial standpoint. And don't worry, we won't be here all day, because if you haven't noticed by now, I talk fast. But here's the deal. Before we talk about some of the issues you're going to be facing and how to tackle them, let's talk about how to have a couple tools in your tool belt so that you can actually be successful in tackling these issues. Because if you don't have a plan, it's not going to happen. So the 2 most important things, number 1 is, I think they're equally important. You have to have a reason to want something, or you're not going to have any motivation to do it, right? That is true of anything in life. If you want to lose weight just because I'd like the scale to look about 10 pounds lighter, or you want to lose weight because the doctor said if you don't lose weight in a year, you're not going to be around anymore, because there was a gal who was a client of a friend of mine that the doctor said that to. Who's got the bigger why? And who's going to be more motivated to stay with a plan to make that happen? So your why has to be big enough. And listen, in 2020, most people have just let everything go. They have let themselves go physically. They have let themselves go mentally. They're not pushing themselves to grow, to be mentally healthy. Financially, maybe it saved us a little money, but maybe some people saved a little money. Other people are in dire straits. Because look at how many people 3 weeks before Christmas have lost their jobs and have nothing. Like, what a horrible time of year to be in this kind of a financial crisis. And businesses that survived the first shutdown don't have the wherewithal to survive the second one. So it's really a horrible time financially. So all those areas are going to affect you as a person and your health, mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually. In every single way, it's going to affect you. So you have to have a why that's big enough. And this year, I just can't think of a bigger why, but yours has to be personal. But a big why that I can think of is that you need to get back to being your best. not for your own sake, for your own health, but if you give to people around you, you can't pour from an empty pot, right? You have to take care of yourself or you're good to no one. So your health, every part of your health is so important that I hope that's a big enough why for you to try and make some changes, to make some successful changes. So that's number one. Your why has to be big enough. And this is still part of number one, but hand in hand to that, you've got to know what the plan is to accomplish that. So yeah, you can say, okay, I want to be the healthiest person I can be. Well, what does that mean? Does it mean you need to eat better? Does it mean you need to exercise? I don't know what that means. Only you do. So you have to have a plan that's kind of the action steps to your why, right? Okay, so now number two, having a why is great. But if you don't already know this, we are only given a limited amount of motivation every day. Like you might have and you all know this is true. You might get up in the morning and go gangbusters, either getting work done or you make a healthy breakfast or you're just in the top of, you're a good mood. And by nighttime, like it's done. Your motivation is gone because you honestly get a limited amount of motivation every day. So you've got to have something that's bigger than motivation. So number one, it's a driving why. It's got to be a really big driving why. But then number two, the best tool I have ever seen to implement what you have to do when you don't feel like it is the 5-second rule. And this has come up, over the past week with a few people. And we've talked about it here before. We talked about it at length. But if nothing else, and you know what? I'll post the link, but it's Mel Robbins' 5-second rule. She's got a great YouTube on it that's like 20 minutes long. Actually, it's not a YouTube, it's a TED Talk. But basically, what it is the second you realize what it is you should be doing, you have to interrupt your brain from having a conversation that talks you out of it to launching yourself into action. Okay, so what that means is you're sitting on the sofa, I have to get up and go get dressed and get to work. But let me just watch the rest of this show and then I'll do it. Or let me just finish my coffee and then I'll do it. And you know what happens? Before you know it, it's 4:00 and you haven't done anything all day. So easy. And listen, that is so much easier this year because of the place we're in. So the 5-second rule says, as soon as you think about the thought that, I should go get dressed now and get to work, before you allow conversation to talk you out of it, because your brain will always try and talk you out of it because it's a protective device. It doesn't know that what you want to do isn't leading you into danger, so your brain wants to protect you and keep you in that place that it knows is safe. Before you have a chance to have that conversation, you start counting down. And I do it like out loud, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then launch yourself into action. And what that does is, while you're counting, you can't have a conversation at the same time, and you really are on a launch pad. So when you're having that countdown, you get up and you start moving so you have launched yourself into action. Believe me, it works. I've used it. I've told so many people about it who've used it and it works. So they're the tools you need. Now let's talk about the areas that you're really going to struggle with this season. If you're not already, you probably are already. And believe me, waking up realizing I had totally killed my computer threw another monkey wrench into my feeling of overwhelm that I had a couple days ago. So let's start with the mental. And the mental feeds into the spiritual and the emotional and all of that. So when I'm talking mental, I'm kind of talking all those areas. But the most obvious I'm going to leave till last. But let's talk about some of the less obvious mental stresses we have this time of year. Okay, one big one that the longer I live, the more I know people, the more I realize that more and more people suffer from this, and that's SAD, seasonal affective disorder. And that is where the different seasons have a huge effect on people's moods and their emotions and really can put them into a deep depression. And if you feel that, if you've never thought about it, but you think, oh yeah, gosh, in the winter, on a gloomy day, like I really feel that heaviness of SAD. And one of the best things you can do is get yourself moving and get yourself into the light. Being in the light is one of the biggest things you need during that time. If it's a sunny, gorgeous day, I don't care how cold it is, bundle up and get outside. Just go sit outside and enjoy that light because it's going to feed you emotionally and mentally in such a big way. If you can't get outside, just make sure you've got lots of lights on in your house. It's so easy for you to acclimate to a dark room and to, your eyes adjust. You can see, you're fine. But that effect that not having light can have on you is big. So turn all your lights on. There's some things you can do to help that. Another thing that's always an issue, and I'll tell you this time of year, it's tougher and it's worse, is really removing or distancing yourself from negative, critical, uncaring, hateful people. And listen, it could be just people on Facebook. It could be friends. It could be family. I don't care who it is in your life. If you go into a situation with people who just make you feel icky and sick and you feel like it's a toxic situation, if you can, you need to remove those people from your life. I mean, look, if they're on your Facebook page, just remove them. I mean, if you're just really afraid that they're going to find out you unfriended them and, you're going to get in trouble, if that really bothers you, then just block them. But get that negative influence out of your life. And sometimes you can't get it out of your life because sometimes it's family or it's friends of friends and you have to be in their company. So if things like that happen, just limit your exposure as much as you can. I mean, some people have really toxic relationships in their family and, beyond toxic, like, oh my gosh, just nothing about it is a good influence or feeds you in a positive way. So in those situations, just minimize your exposure. And this year we're dealing with so much extra stuff. And yeah, the holidays don't look the way they usually do. If you have people you're really having a hard time with because you have different ideas about the virus, and this one wants your family of 50 to get together, and this one's saying, no, you have to all stay home, then just minimize your exposure. Stop talking about it. You do you, let them do them, but just really do whatever you can to minimize the negativity in your life. That's not good for you mentally or emotionally. And then the last one, which is the most obvious, is the mental stress of just feeling overwhelmed. Because the year's so different, it could make the stress even greater because it's not just like, oh my gosh, I have to shop, I have to wrap, I have to send cards, I have to bake cookies, I have to decorate, I have to do this, da, 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 da. This year's even worse because now you're adding to it, like, how do I do these things? Now you don't even know how to do the things that you normally know how to do. So I've said it 1,000 times, and I'll say it 1,000 more times, but you've got to implement the tools and do it. The thing you have to do, the one thing you have to do is a brain dump. You have to write that stuff down. And I just saw somebody say this the other day that I know I have to do that, but I just don't do it. 5-second rule, tools in the beginning. Why is it important? 5-second rules, propel yourself into motion while you're counting down. Grab a tablet, grab a pen, and sit down and then just do it. Because the brain dump, just writing it down and getting it out of your head and onto paper frees you so much mentally just because you've taken that stress out of your head and out of your mind. And then after you do that, you prioritize it, okay? And then you tackle the list in order. And what's going to happen is the most important things will get done and the least important things won't. I mean, I started the week with a feeling of being overwhelmed because it was Sunday. I was talking to my mom and it all of a sudden realized that Christmas with my kids is this coming Sunday. And it's way scaled down because, they can't all be here. Nevertheless, I've still got to shop. I've still got to figure out what are we having to eat. I've got to wrap gifts. Like, oh my gosh, how did I not realize it's next week? And suddenly felt really overwhelmed. And this happened to me the first time, probably 25 years ago, that I felt so overwhelmed that I just felt like I was going to just lose my mind. And that was when I realized I have to write things down and prioritize them. And that 25 years ago is when I realized like sending Christmas cards was near the bottom of my list. And you know what? It hasn't gotten done since. But for me, it's not one of those most important things. So I had to do that immediately. Monday morning when I got up, I planned my week. I wrote down everything I had to do. When I have a plan, when I have structure, then I can move through it. The stress is gone because I know I'm going to get finished the most important things. And then yesterday I killed my laptop. So then it's like, no, like one more thing. Now what do I do? So I didn't even think about it last night. I didn't look about it. this morning I sat down, I told my husband, I said I did it, I totally killed it. And he right away said, which I didn't even realize, he's like, well, I just bought a new laptop. Why don't you just use mine until you can get yours fixed? And so that's going to be my answer. You know, you've got to have systems in place. Thank God everything's backed up in the cloud. I can easily access everything so I can use his. And another thing I'm really grateful for the first time in my life, I bought a protection plan for $54 lousy to give me 2 extra years of warranty. But this is the second time I've needed it. I've only had this laptop a year, and I don't know, 10 months ago, I spilled water all over it and fried it. And now this happened. So throw it in the box. I've already got the claim approved. I send it, and hopefully in a week I have it back. So thank goodness for those things. But if I didn't have a plan, I would just be sitting downstairs, stressing out so badly, not having any idea what I was going to do next. I wouldn't even know how to put one foot in front of the other. So you have to write things down. You have to have a plan. That will save your sanity. I promise you. Okay, so that's the whole mental picture. Now the physical picture. If you don't know, then I'm telling you now that I'm a health coach. And 2020 has been one of the best years of my business because from a healthy perspective, from a perspective of your physical health, I don't have to tell you how badly people have let themselves go because they're not leaving the house. They're sitting around snacking all day. And just the stress of everything that's going on is a lot of stress eating. So we've already got the COVID 20, you know, people have gained an extra 20 pounds because of COVID. And now you're coming up on the holiday 15 where people gain 10 to 15 pounds over the holidays. So my business has been booming because a lot of people are realizing that's not where they want to be and they want to get healthier and lose that weight they've gained. So yeah, we're letting ourselves go physically. So listen, back to the serenity prayer idea. There are things you can't control. You can't control the things that have happened this year to you, like COVID, like shutdowns, like, you know, the politics that have gone on. You can't do anything about that, but you need the courage to do the things you can. So what are you in control of? Let me tell you, ladies, what you put in your mouth, you are totally in control of. If you're making cookies and eating half the batch, nobody is standing there with a gun to your head saying you have to eat these cookies. You are totally in control of that. So take that control, implement the 5-second rule, have a plan for what you're going to do, because do you really want to go into the new year just being at your unhealthiest? Because you're going to feel like crap, and not just physically. You know how you feel. If you're 20, 30, 50, 100 pounds overweight, you know how that affects your level of confidence. You know how that affects your self-image. Let's be the best women we can be. So take control of the things you can control. Just make a plan. Make a plan. Write down, look, what are some healthy options I can have in the house besides the yodels and the funny bones? What can I have that's an option? So, you know, have some fruit in the fridge, have some sliced up peppers, some sliced cucumbers. They have to be ready to go so that you can go grab them, because when you look in the cupboard and you see the Twinkies, the second you see the Twinkie, you start your countdown. You're 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. You are launching yourself to the refrigerator and you grab the cucumbers instead. Whatever that is, or you just grab a drink of water. Listen, 90% of the time you're grabbing food right now, you're probably not even hungry. Your body doesn't need food. So hydrate yourself. The hunger will go away. And remember the 5-second rule to launch you to something healthier. Bottom line, just little by little, try and make healthier choices. There's all kinds of tips you can have for, you know, and you can Google and find a million things, but tips for how to make cookies and not eat them all. I don't know, be chewing gum while you're doing it. You know, the taste of the mintiness in your mouth is not going to make you want to put something sweet in your mouth. Or people say put a little bit of Vicks Vapor Rub right here, because if you're smelling that, you're not wanting to put cookie in your mouth. Lots of tips like that you can find online. But my main message with this is take control of things you can control. And that's something you have control of. So no matter what the world has done to you, emotionally, mentally, whatever, you can control what you put in your mouth. And you can control if you get up or not to take a walk. So control, do what you can. And then finally, financial. Because this time of year adds a lot of financial stress to a lot of people. Because people who already have a shit pile of debt go to $3,000 more into debt at Christmas just because they feel like they have to. And yeah, they don't have the money, but let's just take out another credit card or rack our credit cards up a little more. You need to have financial health too, because if you don't, it's going to affect you mentally, emotionally, and therefore physically. So you need to be healthy in all these areas. So I have found that because of COVID, this season is a little bit financially easier, like for our family, because we're cutting out a lot of the gifts that we used to buy. I mean, you don't have all the friends you're getting together with that you always have little gifts for, and you're not having the big parties where you give everybody a little something when they leave. In our family, we stopped a number of years ago. My siblings and I stopped buying for our nieces and nephews because they're all grown adults now. You can't buy them a gift. So, you hand them $20 and like, really, does that even have any meaning? So we just decided no more buying for the nieces and nephews, but we buy for the great nieces and nephews because, if you celebrate Christmas, it's all about the kids. It's all about watching them open presents and watching the excitement on their face. Well, now we're not going to see any of them this year. And a lot of them are so little, and we only see them at Christmas. Some of them come in from out of state, and they don't even know who we are. So it's like, really, if we send presents, like say, this is from Aunt Donna, like, who's Aunt Donna? So as siblings, we just said, look, let's just all not do it this year. So that saved each family at least a couple $100. So, that's saving some money. And here's the big thing. Here's the sad thing. We don't only put ourselves into this financial debt, but how much of it is buying useless, meaningful stuff just because you feel like you have to give a present? Think about that. How often do you do that? We all do it. Like, oh, okay, gotta buy Sally, my Sally's my go-to. I gotta buy Sally something. I don't know what to get her. Like, oh, okay, look, this is a pretty candle. This is a pretty decoration. And Sally might hate that, and it goes on the shelf, or it gets regifted next year, or it goes in the trash. So how much money are you spending on stuff that has no meaning and stuff that, nobody cares about, but you feel like you have to do it? First off, something I did with my kids years ago, and I told them, stop buying us Christmas presents because there's nothing we need. This is ridiculous. You're going crazy trying to figure something out, and there's nothing we need. So you end up getting stuff just to get it. So it's like, just stop. And what we do instead is we all pool our money and we make a donation to a charitable organization. We either pool our money or we collect food or whatever it is that organization needs. But we do that every year instead. And we're doing it as a family. And how much more meaningful is that? It's like we're still spending the money. We're not spending quite as much, but the money we're spending matters. So I guess that's it. You don't have to reduce what you're spending, but don't spend it frivolously on crap. So that's one idea. Another idea is, crazy white elephant Pollyanna. Do something just to have fun. Make it more about building memories than just giving gifts for the sake of giving gifts. So it's like, okay, none of us are going to buy gifts. Let's have a crazy white elephant. And obviously you can't do that this year, but it's an idea for later. Just have a lot of fun together. Create memories. That's more important than any present you can give anybody. And listen, in this year, crazy climate it is, save it. Save it up and say, listen, here's what we're going to do. As soon as things open up again, we'll go out for a nice family dinner. Or if your family can afford it, we're gonna plan a vacation together next year. And that's going to be our 2020 Christmas gift to one another. So how much more meaningful is that? It doesn't have to cost any more than what you already spend, but take what you're spending and have it mean more. And cut out what you can, and don't put yourself in debt over a holiday trying to prove to everybody how much you love them. Like, that's not where it's at, people. Your present doesn't tell me you love me. It tells me nothing, but you're hurting yourself financially to feel the pressure of doing that. So that's it. Just to recap, mental, physical, financial health is just what it's going to affect you in every single way. Physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. And it will lead to you being physically sick if you're adding all this extra stress and this extra overwhelm this time of year. So learn how to take care of yourself in those things and learn how to do it with the two tools I told you. Number one, first off, have a big reason for wanting to do it. you really know you're headed for bad health and, you know, just more stress, and you don't want to go there because you know how important it is to be your best self, not just for you, but for everyone else. So let that be a big enough reason to want to take the action steps to achieve that. And then the way to achieve those action steps, like I said, 5-second rule, because you won't always have the motivation to do it. And this year, our motivation has been zapped even more than it is normally. So without the motivation, you need a real tool that's going to propel you into action. And that's the 5-second rule. You interrupt and launch. You interrupt the conversation in your head that's going to talk you out of doing it. And you just count down 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 and launch yourself into action and do the thing you have to do. You do that enough times and that thing will become a new habit. And it's something you'll eventually do without even thinking about. Like me doing my brain dump and making my list. I started doing it 25 years ago. I don't even have to think about that now. As soon as I feel overwhelmed, I know I immediately have to just sit down and make my list, and then that's it. And I'm good to go, and I've got structure, and I get my crap done. So it works, ladies. It really works. So listen, you ladies, whatever you celebrate, have a wonderful holiday season. Happy Hanukkah, Merry Christmas, Happy Kwanzaa, whatever it is you celebrate. I just really wish you to have a great holiday season. Make it the best it can be. Google ideas for how to make it meaningful in this crazy year, because there are lots of crazy fun things you can do. If it's down to a Zoom call, you can play games on Zoom and have a ball. So Google some stuff, make it fun, let it still be meaningful. And we're going to take a break for the rest of the year. So I will see you again in 2021. Have a great one, ladies. Talk to you next year.